Hello, I'm Dan Deceiver, and I really like movies. And I watched a lot of movies in 2023, so I'm gonna quickly review them in this video. I'll break each movie down with a 1 through 10 ranking scale and give a brief review of each one that I saw. And to help understand, I'll go in order from each movie I saw this year from the beginning all the way to the end. While I originally wanted to do movies that I saw only in theaters this year, I'll go ahead and do the movies that I saw at home as well. These are movies that are either exclusive to streaming services, DVD, or movies that I didn't get the chance to watch in theaters, but made up for by watching it at home. It seems a bit much to narrow them down, but I did pay to watch some exclusively in theaters, so I think that matters to me at least. Also, this is my channel, so you better shut your mouth and watch the video! And I might dive into some minor spoilers with the movies that I review in this video, so if you haven't seen any of these, I recommend just clicking off and watching them yourself. And also form your own opinion. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. 7 out of 10. While I'm not the biggest fan of D&D, nor do I understand all of the logic, I still found myself being entranced in this world, these characters, and this story entirely. Even if said story has some quick pacing where it's the characters constantly moving location to location with little downtime, it's very lighthearted with many jokes thrown in, but they're quite funny, and there are memorable moments that were actually genuinely chuckle-worthy. The cast of characters were charming and I think played well with each other. I was interested to see Ed Gein try to make things right with his daughter while attempting to try and bring back his dead wife. While the stakes of the movie only showed in the third act of the movie, while the rest was mostly just lighthearted traveling, with some witty dialogue and some moments of character development, it was still a fun journey through and through for probably D&D players to enjoy as well. It's definitely a good time to watch. The Super Mario Bros. Movie. 7 out of 10. I feel the Mario movie has some similar stuff to the D&D movie where it's these characters constantly moving to locations. They establish the issues with Mario and Luigi in the first part where they struggle to be acknowledged and appreciated, but once they get separated, it becomes a personal journey for Mario to try and save his brother. I wish Luigi played a bigger part in the movie where he wasn't a damsel in distress. I know he's cowardly, but only in the climax does he actually stop being scared. Maybe due to his brother being around? But the animation was gorgeous and the soundtrack was great to listen to. But me and others agree the constant pop music drags it. I saw it in the first part with Beastie Boys during the Brooklyn Running segment, No Sleep Till Brooklyn, but it got annoying quickly once they were in the Mushroom Kingdom when we started hearing I Need a Hero and Take On Me, which was kinda out of place. The voice cast was still solid to hear. Chris Pratt's Mario may still be off, especially if you're very used to the iconic Charles Martinet, but by the end he grew on me. As much as the other characters and their voices, they all did their job pretty well, especially Jack Black as Bowser, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, etc, etc. The jokes were pretty chuckle-worthy as well, especially Bowser. I love how he constantly believes that Mario's trying to steal Peach, but all he wants is his brother safe. The Mario movie, not perfect, was still fun, enjoyable, pretty, and I hope it explores more of the world and characters in a potential sequel. It's a movie for fans, and that's what makes it a good time, I believe. Is it a kids movie? Yeah, but it's still a solid and very fun kids movie. Beau is Afraid. 7 out of 10. I like Ari Aster's work. I enjoyed his previous work for how strange yet dark they are, and I think he's very much cranked up the strange factor for Beau is Afraid. So I may understand where some people were coming from when bringing up the absurdity of the movie to a point where it's just very nonsensical and head-scratching. But I can also understand the strength of it as well, and how this is from the viewpoint of a man whose world is a mess from the trauma of his overbearing mother that it had a grasp on him. And during the moments of strangeness, I love the slow burn in some parts, even if there were these moments that stretch for quite a bit of time, especially for a 3-hour-long movie. The performances were really great. You had all these amazing actors playing in these different sort of performances that can range from very calm to off and just delve into craziness, and it makes this sort of childlike innocence and frightened appeal that Joaquin Phoenix has as Beau much more bizarre when this is again from all of his perspective. So they have this good combination of natural and subtle, while going over the top to match the absurdity of these scenes. And of course, it's Ari Aster's directing, which is fantastic. The sets and visuals can feel very gross and cramped, but also very open and pretty, especially during the play scene where it's just these beautiful set pieces. As much as I can compliment this movie, this is probably Aster's most divided film. While there are strengths, there are some weaknesses. I understand that it's sort of a black comedy, but I guess it didn't make me laugh as much. There were some small gags that kind of gave me a confused chuckle, but that was probably it. It wasn't too funny to me, but maybe it was funny to other people, I don't know. I still think this is a very interesting film to sit through, and despite the 3-hour runtime, which is again a bit much. So if you want to have your own perspective on this movie, just sit down and watch this weird and anxiety-inducing world of Bo yourself, and form your own opinion. Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, 8 out of 10. Superhero fatigue aside, this was probably the only Marvel movie I was actually interested, after so much of the recent films have been mostly misses, with some occasional hits, and I think Guardians 3 is a hit. It further explores more of the Guardians and the struggles between them while they have to race against the clock. We get so much more of Rocket in his past, and just how devastating it was that looking back you could really tell what James Gunn had planned for them. While admittedly, a lot of the humor in this movie is pretty good, a lot of it wasn't for me as well. And High Evolutionary was just a great villain for the absolutely unhinged and narcissist he was. Even though I would have liked a little more Adam Warlock, and he was kind of thrown to the side a bit for the more intimidating villain. Again, High Evolutionary is a great villain. The pacing and tone shifts were also an issue as well, as some moments would be pretty sad to see them cut to the Guardians and they could do a funny gag a few minutes later. A pretty strong emotional whiplash. But I think this was still a solid movie that, while having some issues, still felt like a pretty satisfying and emotional send-off to the Guardians, and what they went through for almost a decade. It's a great movie that, while not perfect, left me dancing in an empty theater room. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, 9 out of 10. It's an amazing experience. The animation is absolutely stunning, the designs are top-notch, everybody gives perfect performances. They all range between serious, lighthearted, funny, and powerful. The music is just ear candy to hear. The story immediately throws you into these new things that tops the lore of the first movie with this whole spider society and the stakes of this multiverse destroying villain. It challenges the ideas of what makes a spider person have their identity, and it's just not only for Miles but for the audience as well to grasp. It has all these strings of irony connecting to each other, building to an ending that really was the equivalent of a whiplash. And it's kind of abrupt if I'm being honest. And it makes the setup for the sequel all the more chair-scratching, but overall it's still an amazing experience. Elemental, 6 out of 10. It's a pretty cute movie. While the movie had a lot of negativity behind it before its release, I wanted to have a look myself, and it's pretty alright overall. I think the dynamic between Ember and Wade is charming, although pretty fast. Romance movie logic, I guess. The animation is pretty, and I think the world building is interesting, with all these different elements converging into a city, and I think the comparisons to immigration and foreign people trying to make better lives in a new land of opportunity is interesting, but with obvious racism and discrimination being seen. It does things mostly well, but some elements probably went on for a bit, like the wall leaking conflict, and Ember's conflictions being a bit all over the place. But I think it's a movie not perfect, nor bad, still enjoyable with pretty visuals. A great soundtrack, too, and decent characters, with a plot that simple was still cute and had some meaning behind it. Watch it yourself and come up with your own thoughts. I think it was still a decent time. Nimona, 8 out of 10. After much time, because of the shutdown of Blue Sky Studios, Netflix then picking up the movie, Nimona finally came, and it's a really great movie. It's a whole cluster of chaos, humor, and it's mainly from Nimona herself, as she plays off Ballister, who is mostly the straight, but also not straight, man thrown into this conflict involving class, framing, and the story shows the true colors of a lot of the characters. While there is one character's motives and twist to it that was pretty obvious from the start, the movie quickly acknowledges it as well, and the twist doesn't become the main juice of the story. The movie starts off pretty serious, but quickly devolves into a lot of humor and action, which is a bit of a jux when Nimona comes in, but I think is still quite fun to watch. But the third act and climax is when the movie really shines as it digs deeper into its themes of people fearing things that they don't understand, and those who fuel it. The relationships are deep and rich between characters just as much as the world is, with this mixture of sci-fi, modern, and medieval. It gets genuinely powerful and the performances sell it well. The movie does have a very bit of an abrupt ending in its last minute, but it wasn't so bad. But the climax was still a gut punch, so it felt like that to me. Nimona is a great stylized movie with a lot of fun action, nutty humor, and a story that, while chaotic, was still a heartfelt ride. And me and many others are just happy to see this story finally come to life. Talk to me. 9 out of 10. It's a very terrifying movie that explores grief, addiction, and the influence of youth minds on each other. All the actors give real and believable performances, to where they're not likable, but when you see awful things to or around them, you feel the weight of it, mixed in with the impressive practical effects that are brutally violent, but they don't dwell too far into the violence, to where it becomes campy. The movie does stretch on being weird in some parts, probably more humorous than scary, or just questionable, but it was only minor. The ending was a bit quick, and felt a bit jarring and maybe confusing compared to the rest of the movie's much more slower pace, and it had a whole lot of questions for me, but I think the ideas and symbolism still makes it unique, and dark and impactful after the ride it was. It's an amazing horror movie that had me freaked out, but grappled for how grounded, emotional, and poetic it was that it had me in awe by the end. A really terrifying time. Oppenheimer. 9 out of 10. Christopher Nolan always has a sense for making his movies big, loud, kinda confusing, but still thought-provoking, and Oppenheimer is ambitious for what it achieves in all of it. It's a long movie that has these various time frames involving Robert Oppenheimer, with this time on the Manhattan Project, the conspiracies, and the devastation that followed after the war and how it all comes back to him. It's one that does get pretty conflicting and complicated. I'm no scientist or government official. I have no idea how atoms work. I'm just an idiot. So my tiny brain struggled with putting a lot of the pieces together. But I still understood the imperfections of Oppenheimer's logic, as the film dedicates the build-up to the Trinity test and the aftermath of World War II. Everybody gives amazing performances across the table. The soundtrack is constantly blasting and gives chills down your spine, even during casual conversations. And it all circles back to the effect humanity has on destroying itself with its loud and chilling ending. While not always coherent, Oppenheimer is an amazing movie about consequences and how we should perceive them in the horrors of the future. It's a cautionary tale that still follows us today. Barbie. 8 out of 10. Beach. I found myself enjoying Barbie and how fun it was. While the movie didn't always stick the landing with its jokes for me personally, and it had some odd shifts in tone sometimes, I was still left touched by its message and ending, which was quiet and beautiful after all the bright and cheerfulness it had. Every actor goes deep into their role incredibly well that it's amazing how dedicated they are to being Kens and Barbies. The movie has a lot of jabs from different viewpoints and criticizes the standards and ideas both men and women have amongst themselves, which was interesting to see and also humorous. I enjoyed Barbie a lot, and I see it as an experience of chaotic delight and enlightenment for everybody who wants to feel enough. Also, Alan was the best character in the movie. Don't at me. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. 7 out of 10. I'm not the biggest fan of the Ninja Turtles, nor do I have the most knowledge of them or their lore, but I think this is a solid reimagining of the Turtles to see. It's got unique animation that is stunning and fluid, but also ugly in a stylistic manner that it's charming. The action is great stuff, and each one scene with fighting shows how inexperienced yet capable the characters are with their skills. Admittedly, most of the turtles shine better than others. I also thought one set of villains were pretty unimportant to the story, and were overshadowed by another, and it seems like they'll be much more present in a future sequel. And yes, I know the turtles are teens, they're supposed to act like teens and talk like them, but it got a bit overbearing how much they spoke in references, and it got sometimes annoying. I get it, teenagers are like that. But I also hated myself as a teen, so those moments made me cringe as much when I think of myself. But I did enjoy this April, and how her struggles connected with the team as well. The themes and ideas show the personal conflict the turtles have involved being seen as good by the people, and I think the climax of the movie comes together to be pleasing. Mutant Mayhem is a good time. It's got a fun and engaging story and soundtrack, mostly solid characters, and I'm still up to see this version of the Turtles explored more in the future and how much they'll grow. Haunted Mansion, 8 out of 10. Finally having a chance to watch the movie on Disney Plus, I was really impressed by what this movie sets out to do. While I have never been to Disney myself and experienced the Haunted Mansion ride, but from what I'm told and just watching the movie, every detail feels like a fun tribute to the ride, to even inside jokes that many fans will get as well. It's a campy and fun adventure, following a cast of quirky characters I originally thought were just going to be one note, grew to be larger and serve a bigger purpose in the story, especially as they reflected off the main character Ben and how his personal conflict involves grief and acceptance, as he and the other characters have to figure out how to stop this curse and how it started. There were moments that moved me with its performances, and a lot of humorous moments as well from the cast, with a satisfying climax and emotional message with how hard-hitting it is, especially how it comes full circle by the end. Haunted Mansion is a movie that is based on the ride, is also a movie that does a great job being bigger than that, and is also a fun, spooky experience that also is a heartfelt one as well. So I recommend it the next time Halloween rolls around. No One Will Save You, 9 out of 10. Such a great horror sci-fi movie that brings you back to stuff like Signs, where it's these simple characters trying to survive against an unknown enemy from another world. But No One Will Save You makes itself even more interesting by not having any talking at all, only telling the story through the actions, expressions, great camera work, and chilling tension to where it feels odd but you quickly get used to it. The main character, Bryn, while her story is very mysterious, slowly unravels over the course of the movie while she tries to survive these nights from otherworldly entities that attack her town. And she's a really smart character as well, so watching her try her hardest to make it through the movie makes you root for her. The ending, while admittedly pretty odd, especially the resolution how it wraps up pretty quickly, could feel a bit of a huh? But I don't think it completely ruins a scary, emotional, and great movie like this. And especially with how unique of a premise it has, so it's a really scary great time. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie, 7 out of 10. After so long, many script rewrites, studio swapping, and so much waiting, we finally got our very anticipated FNAF movie, and I think it's pretty good. I can understand where a lot of people seem to enjoy the movie for what it does, but I can also get why some people weren't fond of it. The characters do their job well, and the dynamic of Mike and his sister Abby is charming. The story can be pretty confusing in a lot of parts, and it lacks a lot of consistency and has a lot of plot holes. No, it's not that scary, but it is very fun. And if you approach it to be something to be dark and overly serious, it's not for you. But if you want something very charming, very witty, with impressive animatronic work, and especially nods and jokes for the fans, it's a fun, scary time. Well, kind of scary time. Maybe not scary time. That depends on how you feel about horror movies. I think the FNAF movie on its own is a fine experience, and I hope they do much more in a potential sequel. Blue Beetle, 7 out of 10. DC, as much as I enjoy the property, has always been a mixed bag with its movies. So while I was skeptical going into Blue Beetle as I booted up Max, it was a good movie overall. The dynamic Jaime has with his family is charming, humorous, and you really grow to like them and see how much they care for each other despite the situation they're in. The dialogue and writing is kinda on the nose and can be far from subtle, and it definitely won't win awards. but it does have its moments as well for being impactful with a good message. The story and its main villain isn't much to uphold aside from the secondary villain, Conrad, who has so much more depth, and the movie has its rare moments where it shines, with him more than Vanessa Cord, the evil business lady. My own personal gripe for me was I wish Blue Beetle was more of an actual hero in the movie. The only time he interacts with other people besides the main cast, especially his family, he's accidentally causing destruction from not being able to control his suit, Katya. Other than that, he's just dealing with the main conflict of stopping a weapon manufacturing company. But I will admit, the third act and climax is pretty tense and has a lot of great action, suspense, weight, and comes pretty full circle for Jaime in the end. It's a good origin movie for Blue Beetle. It's not perfect nor amazing, but it was a fun and enjoyable time with heart to it from its cast of characters. The Boy and the Heron, 8 out of 10. My first ever time seeing a Studio Ghibli movie in the theaters. Or is it Ghibli? Ghibli. I don't know, I'm stupid. Anyway, this was my first time ever seeing a Studio Ghibli movie in the theaters, and the experience was great, as people say. With animation, sound design, music, all of it just pops out at you, and it's just a visual and sound delight on the big screen to see it yourself. But as for the rest of the movie, I'm admittedly mixed on it. It has all these elements and rules to the world which I think are interesting, cool, and pretty funny, but my head was struggling to wrap my head around some of it and what it means behind the movie itself with every new location and reveal. The main character, Mahito, I think was interesting, but mostly a blank slate who came along with the adventure as he explores all these insane things alongside a gray heron most of the time. And the gray heron was pretty funny though. He brought a lot of quirkiness alongside those freaky parakeets. Ugh. I didn't realize they could even be that deadly. But the rest of the cast were pretty entertaining as well. Even if I still don't understand most of their purpose in the story and the placement of it, while some things I did grasp and the meaning of, others I will probably have to watch on a second viewing myself to grasp everything that I probably may have missed or could explore more of. A lot of Ghibli movies can be like that, so it's better to give them the time to fully comprehend how you feel about the movie itself, even if it takes another viewing. Despite its messy shortcomings, I still think the movie still goes strong and has a solid story, characters, and of course animation. The Boy and the Heron isn't a masterpiece, yet I still found myself enjoying a lot of it, even if some I didn't get for the first time, but I suggest you watch it yourself and try to understand Miyazaki's detailed film about learning how to live. Well, I guess that's all the movies I have seen this year of 2023. This has probably been the most movies I've seen out of this entire year from my whole life. Despite my love for movies, I rarely went to the theaters when I was a kid, and on the rare occasions I did go, it wasn't much of my choice and to what I wanted to see. So now, as an adult, I can be able to consume as much as I can enjoy myself, and hopefully I can continue more of that in the future. This was a nice little video to try out, so maybe I can do it again at the end of next year as well, with whatever comes out. I hope you enjoyed this dumb review video overall, and I thank you so much for the support. Goodbye.